In the heart of Sinaloa, where the air smelled of dust and citrus groves, a boy was born into nothing. His name was Joaquín Archibaldo Guzmán Lora, but one day, the world would call him El Chapo, Shorty. His size was unremarkable, but his ambition boundless. As a boy, he sold oranges and weed in the hills. As a teen, he smuggled cocaine through jungle trails with the determination of a man twice his age. Violence surrounded him like breath. It wasn't learned, it was instinct. He watched his uncle behead a rival with a machete in front of their home, not in rage, but in business. That was the Sinaloa way. In the late 1980s, the Mexican underworld was crumbling. Cartels were collapsing from within. And while kings fell, El Chapo rose. Not by shouting, not by flamboyance, but through ruthlessness and clever logistics. He turned cocaine into a currency and people into pawns. By 1993, he controlled over half the cocaine entering the United States, running it through tunnels under the U.S.-Mexico border so smooth and silent, the DEA called him the Mole King. But Guzmán's rise wasn't bloodless. Priests disappeared for preaching against him. A judge's car exploded outside a Guadalajara courthouse. Families of journalists were found hung upside down under bridges, their mouths stuffed with paper. In Tijuana, 14 people were slaughtered in a crossfire meant for him. None of them were armed. One was a child. El Chapo didn't blink. He believed fear was the most efficient fuel. His warehouses were filled with dollars stacked like bricks. On one floor, rats ate over $2 million a year. It didn't matter. There was always more. And then they caught him. In Guatemala, 1993, surrounded by bodyguards, he was handed over to Mexican authorities. No shots were fired. He walked into prison with a smirk. His first words were, "You don't imprison a god. You entertain him." What followed was not punishment, it was performance. Inside Puente Grande prison, El Chapo lived like royalty. He had cell phones, gourmet meals, prostitutes smuggled in by guards, and a schedule more relaxed than a hotel guest. He played host to corrupt politicians, bribed officials, and even ran parts of the Sinaloa Cartel from his cell. For 8 years, he lived this way. Until the government began to whisper. New leadership, tighter budgets, U.S. pressure. Rumors of transfer to the U.S. circled like vultures. And so, he vanished. One day in 2001, a guard wheeled a dirty laundry cart out of the prison. Inside it, the most dangerous man in Mexico, tucked between dirty uniforms. Not a single alarm was raised. El Chapo had escaped. And Mexico would never be the same again. The world gasped when news broke, El Chapo, once captured, had vanished. For years, governments would try to deny how easily he had walked out. But in Sinaloa, people cheered. In the barrios, fireworks lit the sky. The king had returned. El Chapo didn't hide. He ruled. From jungle hideouts and mountain fortresses, he rebuilt his empire into something even more terrifying. The Sinaloa Cartel expanded into Europe, Africa, and Asia. Trafficking routes turned into warpaths. Those who crossed him vanished, sometimes buried alive, sometimes returned in boxes of bones to their families. He paid for silence with bullets and loyalty with gold. Mothers thanked him for food while mourning sons he'd sent to their deaths. And then came the war. Felipe Calderón, Mexico's president, declared all-out war on the cartels in 2006. Soldiers flooded cities. Bodies lined roads. Decapitated heads rolled through police stations like warnings carved in flesh. But Chapo didn't flinch. He adjusted. While rivals fell under government fire, he made deals. He infiltrated police forces, bought generals, and turned entire towns into loyal outposts. In some villages, babies were named Joaquín in gratitude for paved roads and clean water bought with drug money and washed in blood. Then came 2014. After 13 years on the run, the impossible happened. They caught him again. This time in Mazatlan, in a hotel filled with his mistresses and henchmen. No shots. No fight. Just handcuffs and silence. The government roared with victory. El Chapo was placed in Altiplano, Mexico's most secure prison. Cameras in every cell. No visitors without approval. No phones. No mercy. But they had forgotten who they were dealing with. While the world moved on, Chapo was planning. Engineers dug in silence for over a year. Through earth, metal, and concrete, they carved a tunnel 1 mile long, straight under his cell, equipped with rails, oxygen, and lighting. On July 11, 2015, during a guard shift change, Chapo slipped into the shower, stepped through a hole in the floor, and vanished once more. Security footage caught only silence and a hole gaping like the mouth of hell. The world erupted in disbelief. How could one man defy every law of man and earth? But this wasn't magic. It was money. It was power. It was corruption layered like bricks. Chapo resurfaced briefly in the mountains, granted an interview to a Hollywood actor, and mocked the law from behind a grin. The DEA lost its patience. In 2016, Mexican Marines stormed his final hideout after a bloody gunfight. This time, they didn't risk it. El Chapo was extradited to the United States, chained and shackled like a beast. In 2019, he stood in a U.S. courtroom silent, emotionless, as his empire crumbled. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years, locked inside ADX Florence, a supermax prison where the walls don't echo and the sun rarely touches your skin. But even now, in Mexican towns and Colombian jungles, his name is whispered sometimes in fear, sometimes in awe. Because no matter how deep they bury him, the tunnel he dug through Mexico's soul still bleeds.